Hy vriende en familie. Ek het besluit om my Huldeblyk in Engels te doen sodat die familie van ons wat nie Afrikaans kan praat nie ook kan deel in hierdie viering van ma se lewe. I knew Ma or Johanna or Dorothy or Oma Dorothy for longer than I can remember. And one of the oldest photographs that I recall was when she was holding me on her arm somewhere near a beach. I suspect it would have been Victoria Bay or it might have been Skipskop. And seeing that, I also instantly then recalled those holidays we used to have at Aliwal Noord, or just those trips through the Karoo. And I recalled the padkos that she used to make, the cooked chicken, the boiled eggs, sandwiches. Dorothy looked at camping and beach holidays as a time to catch up on rest and sleep, because raising the Linde boys was very hard work. And I hate to say, but we were probably not the hardest working children when it came to household chores. On the other hand, though, no one will deny that Dorothy's hands really turned anything that she tackled into success. She had no lazy bone in her body. On house cleaning day, I remember that we as boys had to run to try and save our toys as they find their way down the passage towards the back door when her broom came sweeping through our bedrooms. And if you weren't quick enough, then those toys would potentially find their way into the bin. My memories are actually seasoned with examples of where she's tackled many things and made great successes of that. Even if that was the success of making us feel loved and cared for. I remember when I finished school in my first year, she was waiting for me at the small gate at the back near the Blance's house, at the little gate, just to make sure that I come home all in one piece. And then arriving home was really amazing. It was really synonymous with being treated like a king. As children, we took it for granted that her skills to make money stretch really far to turn the simplest meal into something special. I'm sure that for most of you, most of my brothers, they can recall those French bologna sandwiches and the pink milk and the cheese that she bought from the truck that came to deliver cheese and milk and so on to the Jan Kriel School kitchen. We used to stop the truck halfway on its way up to the kitchen to buy the cheese from them. Or you might recall those days when we went to Frank's farm to go and get some milk, some nice freshly milked cow's milk that we could scoop the thick cream off that to make some butter with. And also the lamb that we bought from Frank that was normally hacked quite thickly, but it was cheaper than buying it in the shops, and that way my mum could keep the budget down. Ma often sent us out to go and fetch a chicken in the back pen, catch it with a piece of bent wire, normally on a Sunday, so that the chicken could be slaughtered, that the feathers could be plucked, and it could find its way into a pot. In fact, my brother Fani carries a scar on his one leg where the hot water was caused a burning wound on his one leg when he was plucking the chicken for one day. And growing up, I can also remember probably not too many domestic disagreements in our family, but if there were any that I can recall, they were 99% of the time about the food budget, because if it wasn't for my mom's skills to be able to stretch the budget the way she did, we probably would have starved. You know, hungry boys are, and there were lots of mouths to feed. So thinking of school memories too, I recall the days sitting, just especially at primary school, sitting under the sun umbrella next to the athletics field. My mum was always there, making sure that we were looked after, that we were fed, that we were keeping our fluids up, and were there to mop up the tears if we didn't do all that well. And I guess one thing that most of you probably recall is she does know how, or she did know how to find a bargain in any shop. You can walk in there and she'll find the one thing that was on a special in that shop. But she also used to find ways to stretch our school budget further by making some of our school clothes so that everyone at least was properly dressed. I remember making a sport rugby shorts for me when rugby season was on. And she diligently sat at night time making our school clothes or making clothes. Or she might be helping us to covering our school books, writing our names on it, making sure it's properly done. And even now when I close my eyes at night, I can still hear that sewing machine sewing away when everyone else has gone to bed. She might be either making clothes, or what she often did was making little dresses for dolls clothes, and she did that, which she sold to make the budget stretch. And I can also recall the knitting machine. That was quite a big thing when the knitting machine arrived. She used to knit a lot by hand, but at one stage she switched over to a knitting machine, which she did a lot of our school jerseys, or as we call it in Australia, jumpers with. And some of you will recall that knitting was a common pastime, especially when the sisters came together. In fact, today we're celebrating the loss of one of those Duquoker knitting squad members. The clicking of knitting needles was a very familiar sound, and I can recall, I won't name names, but a particular uncle that made a specific observation about the knitting of needles while they were all gathered together in one of the sisters' houses. One of her great loves actually conflicted with knitting, though. She used to love working in the garden, and often the toll of that was that her hands or her fingers' skin became quite scuffed up and quite rough. And I can specifically recall the Trixie cream, and I'm sure that my brothers can as well. The Trixie cream that was always in a handbag that was used to smooth down her skin so that she can keep knitting again. Talking about gardening, she also loved figs, she loved guavas, she loved freshly grown vegetables from her own garden. And when it comes to flowers, I'm sure you can nominate which flowers were favorite ones. I can think of the cannas, carnations, daffodils. I remember the daffodils growing there next to the garage at the Uncle Schoolhouse. Dahlias were quite popular for her, and renonkels. I'm not sure whether renonkels is the right name. That's what we called it in Afrikaans. With my dad in those days selling fruit and vegetables for extra money, making things like jams and chutneys also came second nature to my mum. I also remember the couple of years she managed our veggie store and our takeaway store. It was Van's Cafe and Tasty Eats takeaway shop in Coast River. It was sort of a stretch further from my dad's vegetable selling and fruit selling business. And my brother Christo was perhaps the one that was the most constructive in helping my mum during that time when she was running those two shops. She used to work really late. She would come home at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I remember actually with great fondness making those hamburger patties in the little cafe, and also watching Andre plow through the ice suckers. Dorothy's cooking skills were actually well known, and most of those listening today will remember times when they enjoyed the benefits of those cooking skills. And just to mention a few things to get the taste buds going, I remember chocolate cake, milk tart, caramel pudding, And the one I really loved was the apple pie with the honey sort of that drenched the topping, the cake topping on top of the apple pie. And she often helped out in bazaars when we were at school, and she helped at church as well. She normally was involved in the pudding stall or the toy stall, but also making puddings, making jellies, sometimes making curry and a rice as well. It was one thing that she did quite often. But the thing that stood out the most for me in terms of a quality product she produced was a fudge. I think her fudge was the best that I've ever tasted. In fact, she taught Anna, my wife, how to make that fudge, and while we were in South Africa, she passed on that skill to Anna so that we could earn a little bit of extra money when we had young kids in the house, and it wasn't always that easy for Anna to work. It was better for her to look after the children. So she managed to master the art of Dorothy style fudge, and that's probably something we will make more now that I'm just thinking about that. And Ma often used to make themed cakes when birthdays came up. I remember Hansel and Gretel cake that I had, or a big ship cake, sort of, cake in the shape of a ship. In fact, that one was attacked by her greatest enemies, ants. So I'm sure that anyone that think of Dorothy would probably echo the words that Marissa used for me. She said that Ma was some special lady.